I bring you greetings, my district, Rotary District 5010. My district includes Rotary clubs in the Yukon Territory, Canada, Alaska, USA, and all of Russia east of the Ural Mountains. My district covers 11 time zones. We speak English, Russian, and Canadian, eh? And from the Ural Mountains to the Yukon Territory, we are the largest Rotary district in the world, nay, the galaxy, and a more modest bunch of people you could never hope to meet. Today, I want to tell you a story. It seems like a story, but really it's all about the Rotary Foundation, and you will feel it and know it and believe it by the time that we're finished. This story all began in 1997 when a group of Rotary leaders from Canada, the US, and Australia all went off to Western Siberia to charter 4 new Rotary clubs. Now, remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, when communism was ending and the terms glasnost and perestroika were so familiar? Well, communism did end. And they went out the door and they turned off the lights. And I do not exaggerate when I say that that country did not know what was going to happen next, what form of government it was going to have, how it was going to raise money to keep the planes in the skies, to keep the buildings clean, to educate people, to support their hospitals. It was a real crisis for a long time, and they were trying to sort their way through it, and really it was no time for a committee to study these things. They knew of 2 viable options. They could have gone back to communism because regardless of what we think about it, in some ways it had worked. From the cradle to the grave, they were looked after. There was another option waiting in the wings, ready to take over. It's called the mafia. Neither one of those alternatives was palatable to most of the Russians, and we offered a third option. Think about us. 1.2 million business and professional men and women all over the world. We have a code of ethics. We have a foundation. We know how to get the job done, and we're not afraid to take off our jackets and roll up our sleeves and do it ourselves. And so these new Rotarians in Eastern Russia were so thrilled to be Rotarians and to maybe do something for their communities that were struggling. And when we arrived at the first 3 cities in Western Siberia, well, they literally rolled out the red carpet. The TV cameras were there, the radio microphones were poked in front of our faces, the mayors came out to shake our hands, they overfed us, and they gave us an obscene amount of vodka to drink. So I really thought that this was how it was going to be in our 4th spot. That was Tomsk. And Tomsk is where this story is born. Because in Tomsk, my host said, Carolyn, could you take 15 minutes out of your busy schedule? I want to introduce you to the first Rotary project of the Rotary Club of Tomsk. Tomsk is next door to Seversk, which even today is a closed city because there's a nuclear power plant there. And there had been radiation leaks. Now, they weren't so big and so sexy that you heard about them on CNN. They weren't like Chernobyl, but the impact, the medical damage was the same. And the doctors had noticed so many kids showing up at the hospital with leukemia and other forms of cancer of the blood. Well, the doctors have a medical plan that would help these kids. But the thing is, in '97, the hospitals hadn't received their stipend from the government for 14 months. And whereas the doctors had often kicked in a few rubles to help buy the medicine in the past, they hadn't received a salary in 14 months. So these children in this hospital were going to die unless the Rotary Club could come up with another alternative. And it was that chance request that helped write the first chapter of what we now call the story of the children of Russia. I have to tell you truthfully, I wasn't thrilled about the idea of going to the hospital and seeing these kids because deep down inside of Carolyn, there is a core of cowardice. And I didn't want to see kids that were bald and that were dying. But I did my best to be a good Rotarian that day, and I agreed to go. And all the while I was riding in the car, I was giving myself a pep talk and saying, Be strong, Carolyn. Be strong and do not cry. The last thing these kids need is to see a grown woman cry. So we got to the hospital. Doctors told me what they like to do if they had the chemo medicine, and they took me to meet the kids. And I was right. They were bald, they were sick, and one of the 5 was tragically ill. And I wished at that moment that I had brought a present, but nobody had told me I was coming there until just before I got in the car. So I dug deep into my purse, and like all governors-elect, I had my district governor card. It was me in a bright red jacket and a great big smile, and I gave a card to each child, and they looked at that card